Hi everyone, thanks for joining today's meeting of developers. So I'm looking at the agenda. We can start with Francois, okay, about failover delay. Do you want to share the screen, Francois?
Sure, yeah. I mean, I don't know how it goes usually. I haven't prepared anything specific, so maybe I'll go over the PR and I'll explain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no plot, so.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I'm just gonna explain what we want. We basically want to be able, for us, it's mostly actually disabling completely automated failover, but a failover can do the job. I mean, a failover delay can do the job. The reason why we want some time to disable automated failover is because we have some ETL pipelines that rely on replication slots, and when failing over, even with features like Patroni has, we may have issues when failing over and copying, copying the replication slot, the logical replication slot. And so in some cases, for some databases, we prefer to have a little bit more downtime, but make sure that we don't break this ETL pipeline because it's way more costly to fix it. So yeah, in that case, we prefer to completely disable failover, automated failover. And yeah, having a failover delay, well, in our case, we mostly put it a long time. But I guess other people might want to have a failover delay. For example, if you know that you are in network conditions that are that might break, and you prefer to wait a little bit because it's not a very critical cluster, and you can allow some time without a primary, then if you prefer to have it just come back by itself after a minute or two, for example, it might be useful. So yeah, that's the idea. Regarding the implementation, which we just added.
Yeah, by the way, as you know, I think we had a discussion. I completely agree with you on this. I think it makes sense. So by default, it's 0. So, enable that. But I think in some cases, it makes sense. So yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, we had that discussion before. So yeah, it's good that you reminded. So for the implementation, we just introduced a new configuration on the cluster resource, which is the failover delay. It's in seconds. It's the same convention. I would say that for like the max switchover delay, I mean, everything's always in seconds. So yeah, follow the same idea for naming convention. We have also something added in the status, which is basically the moment we detect that the current primary is failing. This is important because that's basically a timestamp, and that's the time when we're going to track. We're basically doing now minus this time is now minus this time higher than the delay, and if yes, we start failing over. So for the implementation, it's actually, it was my first, I would say a big PR, like not just like a hotfix. Yeah, basically plugged a check for the failover delay on the update primary from pods, and update target primary from pod, sorry, and same for the replica cluster. So it was straightforward. I mean, I was actually happy like to find that it was fairly easy for me to get there and to understand the whole logic. So yeah, I appreciated that. And so yeah, that function basically uh, checks what exactly I just mentioned. So it gets the time now. It checks if we were already like failing, because it might be another reconciliation loop. And then yeah, then it checks if the primary failing since is so primary failing since is now minus the timestamp that we saved in the status the first time we saw it, the first time we saw it failing the primary. Now we check if that has passed the failover delay, and if yes, we return a special error, and then we so a special error type, and we handle that error type. No, if no, I mean, sorry, wait here. So when we call the update target primary from pods, we check the error type. If it's an error saying that we're still the error type still waiting on failover delay, we just return, and then we wait for the next reconciliation loop. Here, there is still a question about the implementation, which I discussed it with no, it was not. Yeah, was it Gabriele? Yeah, maybe.
No, I think probably Jonathan.
Oh yeah, maybe, yeah, you're right. It's Jonathan. Yeah, and so what I wanted to know is, should we actually, instead of just waiting for the next reconciliation loop, should we just like requeue after basically the leftover delay? So say if there is like 10-second left before we should trigger a failover, should we just requeue after these 10 seconds? And yeah, we think that we should do it this way. I haven't had time to implement it because I was on holiday, but yeah, that's basically where the implementation is probably gonna go, is that instead of just waiting for the next reconciliation loop, we're gonna requeue to trigger a next reconciliation loop right after we should actually failing over. So what's gonna happen in that reconciliation loop is that we're gonna check again if the primary is failing. If it's still failing, then we're gonna actually do a failover. If it's not failing anymore, then business as usual. We're just gonna continue the reconciliation, and that's it. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, and also yeah, something important is that yeah, once we're done with that, primary is not failing anymore. So we reset it to nil, the timestamp, the current primary failing since we reset it to nil, and we update the status, and that's it. So yeah, and that's it.
You rebase these after we I think, yeah, I think August 8th, I think we had already refactored, I think, part of the code, the underneath
Okay,
code.
so yeah, I might have to rebase because I haven't touched the code since like 3 weeks, something like that. I guess, I mean, I haven't rebased since like 3 weeks.
No, but I'd
Yeah.
like if we could, start, now that we don't have replication slots, I think we should take these and yeah, provide a review. What do you think, guys? Anyone?
Yeah, I think is a useful feature. So yeah, I vote for reviewing and merging.
Yes. I
Yeah.
find it really useful too.
Now the only thing I don't know if we should expose the status through a condition. It could be more natural to have one condition per pod and expose the status there, so you can have the status and the timestamp when it changed, and that could be useful to have an insight of the status of every host directly inside the CR.
I think we already have, I think Armando worked on something like that. If I remember correctly, Armando, I think we already did something like that.
So instead of having
remember?
like something like current primary failing since, we would just identify, like we would have the status for each of the nodes, and we would say like this node is failing, and if this node appears to be the primary, then that's what's triggering a failover or not. Is that what
Yeah.
you're suggesting?
Yeah, something like that. The only problem is who is responsible to update the condition, if it is the operator or is the node. That is the only. I think it will be very useful even for debugging. You just get the cluster and you see if everything is fine or not.
I shared a
Yeah.
commit in the chat.
Mhm.
I don't know if that's relevant.
There is a similar thing, but the condition is something like now we have a condition, for example, when the archiving is failing on one host on the primary. So the good about the condition is that they are decoupled from the resource. So you can have for example, the instance that is responsible to update that part and never have a conflict when you are updating thing from the operator. So that. And another important thing about the condition is that you can wait on a condition using kubectl.
Yeah, true.
Well,
And
but
then-
the condition would be in the pod or in the cluster.
No, in the cluster. In the cluster.
Okay,
Yeah.
so there is one condition in the cluster
Not one condition per
node.
per pod, per node, yeah.
in the
Yeah.
cluster. One condition per
cluster.
pod in the cluster.
And so you call the expose the status of the pod directly. And another good thing about the conditions is that they have naturally they have a timestamp about the last time they were failing and the reason. So you could, for example, tell that the host is down because the operator is unable to connect to the host, or for example, because Postgres is crashing inside the pod. So it could be very useful to know that.
Yeah, I like the idea also of like reusing that instance status thing. That yeah, like yeah, I like this idea too.
I think the idea, but Armando, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, that idea of the map was also, I mean, was to store information that
Instance
we already
reported
had.
state, it's the other one. It's line 329.
Yeah.
This
Yeah, the
one you're
reported
referring
state,
to. Yes.
So if we want at the pod level, I mean, at the instance level.
At the instance layer, you should add the field in this struct.
Yeah. And we
Failing
decided,
since,
we
yeah.
decided to, not to, I think there are some fields we could have put inside, for example, current primary or target primary, the timestamps, but then we decided not, or the time, yeah, the timeline, as you can see, there's a timeline of the cluster, but then each instance has its own timeline. Also, this is important for debugging in some cases, but I think, you know, Armando proposed to start these so that in the future, when we have maybe a V2 version of of the API, we can refactor the status and keep the map.
Yes, because
so-
it makes sense because each instance reports a different state. It's not right to flatten it on the status level.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I
Yeah, you-
prefer also, I also
Yeah.
prefer using a map and reporting the status of every instance, yeah. Mhm.
And that
Yeah,
could
and-
be useful for another thing I was speaking today with Leonardo, the fact that if some instance fall behind in a way that cannot be reattached, we can report that in the same place and update the status like, oh, okay, I'm healthy, but the HA is degraded, and that could be a useful addition to
Mhm.
to monitor the status of the cluster.
Yeah, sure, not only the primary, every node. Mhm. Okay, yeah, I'll refactor to use that instead, yeah, totally agree. Yeah. Okay.
Good. Yeah, anyway, if you want, you can, rebase, make your changes, ping us again, and then I think we can start,
Okay, sounds good.
a review.
Yeah, I'll try to work on it starting next week, because that's when I'm not on holiday anymore. And
Yeah.
I'll probably be done by before the end of next week. I'm quite sure about it. Yeah, also I have added some tests. I didn't add any end-to-end test. I think we should, but yeah, I haven't looked into it yet, the end-to-end test. It's important, and it's yeah, I know we tried to be very thorough on that, so
Francois,
Okay.
I probably have a really dumb question about that check failover delay function.
Yeah.
And
sorry.
the question is, oh, yeah,
Sorry,
should
I'll put it, yeah, here.
yeah, that one, yeah. I see you returned an error here, and to me, I was just skimming through the code, so nothing deep. But I believe that that was an error while checking the failover delay, not that the check was negative or positive. This is just about the signature.
Maybe
So
the
why you-
naming. So I was actually when I did it, I was naming is one of the hardest thing to do, and I was not very confident with the check failover delay name. But first, because here I update the status, maybe I could have updated the status after returning also, but I wanted to do everything in there so that it's sort of self-contained. But so yeah, I had to like bubble up this error.
Okay,
And
great.
yeah, so I had to bubble up this error, and I also the way we're handling the calls here to update primary, we are already kind of using errors here, we are doing if error while receiver still running, like we're already doing that sort of thing here, to say like whether we should wait that the while receivers are done or not, so yeah, I said like, okay, I'll continue doing this way, like just adding a new different error type. So that was the way
Okay.
I
I
saw it.
understood now. Perfect. Thank you. I got it.
Any other question?
Not for me.
I
Yeah,
guess we can-
basically, I don't know if I mean, the next version 1.18 will be around KubeCon, North America, so the end of October, 25th of October. So that's what we're kind of targeting. So I think it would be great if we could all work to get these in the in CloudNativePG before that, so I think we should try and do it.
Cool. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are other things. I mean, it's out of the context, but there are other things that I don't know if we are working on or I'd like to work on. It's something that I mentioned is the way we handle the processes. I mean, the different controllers. You know.
Yeah,
I
we
think
can
there's-
talk about them, you know, if you want to
Yeah.
lead, that's, yeah, please.
Yeah, I think that's also interesting. Oops, yeah,
I'll
that one.
change the agenda.
Yeah, there was a milestone for 117, but yeah, I think it was too optimistic. Yeah, this one, this maybe we can talk about it in the next meeting also.
I think we
okay.
can even now, I think, I don't know if Leo, Marco, I know you tried to explain this to me because I'm not technical in, you know, in Go, and I'm mostly, I don't know, I don't even know what I am. So we have to rely on these guys, you know.
No worries. Yeah, it's so we use Cube Builder, and Cube Builder uses the controller runtime package here to manage the different controllers. And yeah, the controller runtime is it's not done. I was about to say like it's a bit done, but it's like the way it like it considers that it can just crash and restart because it's not running anything critical. Like I mean, critical in the sense that it's not stateful. So yeah, it considers that it can just crash and restart and everything is fine. But obviously for us, it's not the case because the instance manager runs Postgre. So I think we need to we can still use the controller runtime, but we just need to like make sure that at least we catch panics or things like that, and that it just doesn't crash. So yeah, we need to look at that to make sure that if something else than Postgres crashes, it shouldn't crash Postgres. It should at least do a graceful shutdown.
Yeah.
So
I totally agree
it
with
happened
you,
to us.
yeah.
It happened to us because the metrics server crashed. So yeah, it crashed because there was a bug, and that's like it's a detail. I mean, the reason why it crashed, but it crashed, and then it took down also Postgres, and then Postgres entered in recovery mode. So when it came back, because it crashed abruptly. So yeah.
If you look at the replication slot patch, we already adopted that in that patch. So the runner of the replication slots have a recover in the code. So if it crashes, it doesn't bring down everything, but just starts another cycle. And
Yeah,
I
that's
think
good.
we can do the same on every runner that we have, like the pipe, the log pipes, and even well, everything else is the same. So the web servers, crashing the web server should not bring down Postgres. That is
Yeah.
Yeah.
Marco, do you mind showing or pointing to that
No,
code
it's
snippet?
inside go to the internal folder inside the repo, and then management, and then controller, and then slots.
Yeah, sorry, the new one. Yeah,
Slots, and then runner.
Yeah.
There you go. Inside runner.go.
Okay.
There it is. If you look for recover.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah, it's a bit down. Yeah, that one.
reconcile. Okay, here. Okay, cool. Yeah. Yeah, we should do that for every
Yeah,
connect.
exactly. Yeah,
Exactly.
totally agree. We started doing that, and yeah, we need to protect every
Yeah.
runnable we have with this.
I would say that's a start, but then for me, ideally, we should. I don't know if that's what we're doing. I haven't looked, but we should either try to restart and then or we should do like try to restart maybe once, twice, 3 times, and then if it doesn't work, we do a graceful shutdown or something like that. The reason is that some components are also very important. They are not as important as Postmaster, obviously. But I mean, say if you run without the metrics endpoint for a while, it's problematic, you know. So we should, or maybe I don't know, maybe raise some sort of alerts, or I don't know exactly how
As a,
to, but
yeah. As a totally different approach, we have already the code to reuse an existing postmaster, and we are using it when we do the in-place upgrade of the instance manager. We are basically replacing the PID1 with a new PID1 using the new binary of the instance manager. So that could be possibly a mechanism to avoid just shutting down Postgres. So replacing the whole instance manager with a new one, adopting the same postmaster.
Okay.
It's
Yeah,
it's an orthogonal approach, and in that case, you would have everything from scratch.
yeah, it's I wonder like what happens here when so here we recover, we set the error, and
We
then
log it and then we try again, because
Okay,
the
okay.
external loop just is a ticker. So every tick time it try to reconcile.
Okay,
If you crash, you log it and
yeah,
you
because
will wake
here,
up after
okay, I
some
see,
time.
because
Yes,
here
this
it's a
case is well suited to this approach, but unfortunately,
exactly.
this is not true in the other runnables. So this is
Yeah.
why I was talking about that crazy
Yeah.
mechanism of replacing the process.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. Yeah, that maybe for example, for the HTTP server, it will not fit
Yeah, no,
very
for
well.
the HTTP server is the same. If one request crash, just keep running
Yeah.
and try handling the next one.
Yeah, for the
And
one
for the
yeah.
log pipe is the same. If the log pipe crashes, you need to restart it, because you need to continue handling the content of the file, because if you remember, a log pipe an hanged log pipe is preventing Postgres to log, so it's stopping Postgres. So you need to restart it.
Yes, but
Yeah.
unfortunately, this is true only for certain errors, and it depends, meaning that just restarting the Laravel may lead to a new situation when the instance manager is still stuck. So it's, unfortunately, I don't think sometimes we can just have in an intelligent way just like this. So as a last major resort, we can just replace everything. But I don't know, I'm just thinking aloud with you.
Yeah, it's it's a complex issue. I mean,
It's something like the Erlang approach.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, with everything is yeah, runs in its
But we don't have a
own
supervisor
namespace.
here, unfortunately.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, at least doing that. I mean, even for the HTTP server, yes, like catching, recovering for every request is fine. But if the HTTP server crashes for another reason than a request, then it's the same thing. I mean, it's like we need to, I think there is or maybe we can just try to restart every component, and then if it like, I don't know, if it just fails more than 3 times, we just like do a complete graceful shutdown of the Postgres pod. Yeah, and
Yeah.
that will trigger a failover. I mean,
Yeah.
there's
That
that
will
kind
trigger
of
failover. In
That's
that
another.
case,
That's another.
you don't have a failover. You just have restart of the instance manager with the same
Yeah.
Postgres.
true.
Mhm.
I think we need time to think about it. This is not an easy question. I bet there is no perfect answer.
Yeah, but maybe
to this
what we
problem.
could do is if we find maybe one case, so we try and address maybe, Francois was mentioning the logger, okay, or the Prometheus exporter.
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know, if we can tackle one at a time while we
Yes.
understand.
And we could also have a multiple level inside the same component, because, for example, if you fail answering a request in a web server, you can try restarting from and logging something. If you fail binding the web server, you can gracefully shut down. That is, so we can have multiple recover
Reason,
path for
yeah.
every component.
It should
Yeah.
be easy to add a middleware inside the HTTP server to catch panics. So we can start doing that, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think the first step is catching panics, like what's done here in the
Yeah,
slots,
exactly.
and then we can think of a more long-term like a global approach to that problem. Yeah, we can also look at what others are doing. I mean, patroning, for example.
But by the way, I think we should also think about having a dedicated function to log panics, and then in our end-to-end test, search in the log for the signature of that function, because we need to be resilient to panics, but we need also to catch them in the test and avoid having panics when the operator is normally operating.
Mhm.
Yeah, let's create an issue with these ideas. At least we can use that one for the HTTP server and to improve the end-to-end tests. And we don't forget about what we said. at
Yeah.
least.
Yeah, I agree. That we should do that.
Okay. So do you have any, I think you had other issues you wanted to go through. So, yeah, regarding these, so what shall we do? Should we create an,
So,
specific
we'll-
issue in the next few days, or?
I think we'll create an issue where we try to
HTTP.
recover everywhere we can. That's what we just said. Like, that's the first step. That's clear, and it's a quick win, I would say. And then and then I think we'll have to discuss.
Would you like to try and do that, or?
The recover part? Yeah, I
Yeah.
can definitely do that. Yeah.
Okay, and we can, assist, yeah. Okay, good. So, I'll add that as an action item to create, create.
I'll stop sharing my screen.
Okay,
I think we're done
Then-
there.
okay. I wanted to quickly, do an overview of the replication slots, but primarily, I wanted actually to celebrate, these important patch. I mean, it's about physical replication slots primarily, but
Yeah, it's nice. Something also very nice is to have I think in the 117 we can now have a volume for walls. I think it's really nice too.
yeah, and so we still have to do some benchmarks on having separate volumes for the database data and the walls also. So this is basically, we have tried to put some information in the commit message. We have kind of coined these two terms, the primary HA slot. So it's actually a physical replication slot that is managed by the primary. And there's one for each standby that is attached in streaming replication. And there's also the standby HA slots. They actually live in a standby, and there's one for each standby that is in the cluster except that cluster. So this is a diagram. I need to update the names because this was the initial idea. So, for example, this is a cluster with 3 instances. The green ones are the primary HA slots, and these ones are the standby HA slots. As you can see on cluster 2, there's slot for 3 and 4, in the third one for 2 and 4, in the fourth for 2 and 3. We pretty much, you know, we've decided to think about 4 clusters, because with 3 we don't understand the relationship between the standbys. So, and essentially at the moment we have decided to disable these by default, but I think we're not excluding, I mean, if some conditions are, I don't know, I mean, we could even enable that by default if some conditions exist. Of course, this is just for 11 or higher, because we require this function, and in 11 because we still have the recovery.conf file, and that file can only be read at startup. We need to issue a rolling update every time we update, we enable or disable this patch, this feature. And then we've added some information about, you know, replication slots. You can see it's good. There's a lot of people involved. Yeah, and I don't know why there's Philippe Enterprise DB still. It doesn't work at Enterprise DB anymore. Anyway, so I don't know. Michael, you developed primarily this feature. Do you want to add something?
No, I developed the initial implementation, but without Armando and Jaime, that they worked a lot to clean up the code. And yeah, I think what I want to say is thank you to them, because yeah, they did a wonderful work. So
Yeah, and then, you know, there's also, you know, Jitendra and Danish, they're also adding more tests now. So yeah, end-to-end tests. So, but I think the initial patch looks good. So there's also the documentation here.
what I noticed is that in this patch branch, there are less failure in failover and switchover tests. So I think it is a good patch, and if we start testing it in other tests, having the replication slot always enabled, and Jitendra and Danish are working on that after some time, and possibly even before releasing the first implementation. So in 1.8, if it is possible, I would like to have it enabled by default.
Yeah, there was also another thing we were thinking about, and we should create a ticket after this is merged, about introducing another option at the cluster level that basically defines a threshold for considering, you know, the available disk space on the storage at risk for wall consumption. Okay, so the idea is, for example, this setting called wall warning threshold or something like that, that by default could be 80% of the storage. So if it's, you know, a single volume, it's 80% of the total storage. If it's the wall storage, it's actually 80% of the wall volume, which makes sense, okay? So basically, by saying 80% of the total storage doesn't make any sense. So basically, if that's the default, it won't change anything. But if this is enabled, for example, let's say 80% of the 10 gigabyte volume for walls, we say that 80% is dedicated to, it's considered the safe zone for walls in that volume. So if you go beyond that threshold, we need to start considering, you know, enter kind of an emergency mode where we say, okay, we are consuming too much space for walls. We need to go in an emergency mode because we also need some buffer space to recover. So it could be 80%, it could be 90% of those 10 gigabytes. And we could also use that with the PostgreSQL. There's actually PostgreSQL option. I don't remember how it's called, but Max for the slots. I don't remember. There's an option. I don't know if you can find it, that defines the maximum size that replication slots can have. So if we define that to that 80% threshold, Postgres itself disables the replication slots and makes them invalid. Okay, so we can free the space. So if we add that, it's like having an autopilot kind of cluster with Postgres that can self-heal and prevent from, you know, the avalanche kind of effect by creating these, basically shutting down the primary, then generating a switchover, and maybe the standby is not aligned because you know, the disk volume was completed and so on. Okay, I think this is something to you know, discuss. I was thinking of creating this ticket. Did you find that option? I think it's probably in the replication slots configuration. Okay, max slot wall keep size, this option. Okay. So Francois is leaving.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I have
Okay.
another meeting.
No,
right
no,
now,
no, that's
so-
okay. I think this was the overview. Thanks for joining. Okay.
Yeah, I'll give it a try to the, I'll probably try and again next week, the feature. It's really interesting.
Okay, thanks, Francois.
Thank you.
So this is the Kanban board. So yeah, we should probably work on these. So Francois is working on this one. I don't know if Philippe was working on the what's this? Anyway, I think we can conclude here. What do you think? Let's check the agenda. Review of the feature. Evaluation of ideas for Max. Okay. Now stop sharing. Anything you want to say? So we wait for Francois to, you know, submit a new version of the patch, and then I'll create or I mean, we can create the ticket for the recover part. Okay. Well, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye bye. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Stop.